What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Nichols and Dimes show, where we learn about entrepreneurial journeys and lessons from all types of entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. Thank you for being here. Welcome back, everybody, to the Nichols and Dimes show. I'm your host, Chris Nichols. This week's episode is a recap of Q1 2024. So just like what I did at the end of the year 2023, I made a couple of episodes that presented highlights from each episode that I released throughout the year. And so I want to do that a little bit more often now, but figured we get some more digestible content with some highlight snippets from each podcast so far this year. And we are just at nearing the end of March, which is crazy. This year is flying by already, right? It seems to do that more and more as we get older. But it's been an exciting year. The podcasts have been great. I'm connecting with more and more amazing people of all sorts along the way. And I launched my business, Legacy Kapsule, which is a podcast as a service for a loved one in your family, so you can honor their legacy, cherish a memory of a person beyond just your classic photo albums or voicemails that are left in your phone. So I'm working on getting things moving with this. And of course, if any of you are interested in doing this for a loved one in your life, please reach out to me. I would love to get things going and we can talk about an early customer type of deal of some sort. But I want to really focus on making great content right now, of course, so that we can get some momentum going and people can understand actually what this is. So it's a journey, of course. You know, blazing a trail as an entrepreneur presents a lot of questions and uncertainty, and it's exciting, scary, all the above, right? So anyway, that being said, let's get into the highlights of 2024 Nichols and Dime Show podcast so far. Enjoy. First up is a solo episode I released about 4 lessons from 1 year of podcasting. And in this particular segment, I talk about imposter syndrome and the impact that had on my hesitation to move forward with the podcast when I was starting a podcast about entrepreneurship, when I had not actually seen myself as an entrepreneur. Check it out. Imposter syndrome. This was another thing that I struggled with, given that I started a podcast about entrepreneurship, but never have really built a successful business by myself in my terms, right? Or in the definition as I would consider a successful entrepreneur. So how did I go around this? Well, I approached a bunch of other entrepreneurs that I thought were really cool, fascinating, interesting people with great stories to tell. And I made the conversations completely about them. So, and this is something I love and that I won't ever stop doing. I love putting the other person in the spotlight who I think is interesting and fascinating and someone who deserves it. Frankly, someone who I'm just interested in learning more about. And if I can have a conversation where I'm able to share that information in a valuable way to help inspire others or give people a deeper understanding into this person's story and their business, then amazing. Then I'm doing what I want to do. Next up, Jeff Glover. 4th degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and world champion. Here, he talks about his money on the mat Jiu-Jitsu tournament, where he was able to make some money and create some awesome Jiu-Jitsu competition while things were shut down in 2020.
I put a thing on Facebook about like, hey, I'm looking for 16 dudes that want to put money up to prove that their Jiu-Jitsu is the best. I don't care what belt you are. If you're a blue belt, whatever. If you're a blue belt who thinks you can beat the black belts, put your money on the mat and prove it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, dude, like 3 hours later, I had 16 dudes all like ready to go.
Wow.
And I was like $300 each. So what is it? 16 times 300? I forget what the math was. I think it was like $4,800.
Yeah.
I could do the math. It was something like that. Yeah. It was like almost 5K.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, dude, what a good way to make money. Like all of a sudden I had all this money, you know?
Yeah.
And it was going to go, we're going to give 3 quarters to the winner. And then the last quarter, I was going to split with the person in second place.
Okay.
And it was a nice little bit of money for me, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For essentially like not doing anything. Like like I shouldn't say not doing anything, but doing something new.
Yeah.
You know, and it was fast too. Mm-hmm. It was fast. It was like in 3 days. Boom, all of a sudden just boom, and it was done. And we ran that first one. It was so successful. You can actually go on YouTube, and I'm super awkward, and I'm like wearing a tie and shit, and I'm like, oh, this is my tournament, blah blah blah. And I had a lot of my friends, by the way, help me with this whole thing. It's such a cool story, the Money on the Mat story. There's a documentary. Roy Dean did a whole documentary on it. He came and stayed with me and filmed me for 5 days. Basically, it was the 10th episode, the 10th tournament that we had done.
Next up, Yoni Wunderman, founder and CEO of Compliance Edge. Here, he talks about how he has maintained a one-man shop operation for making his knives and challenges he's experienced in outsourcing and why he has always come back to doing this completely himself. And that's the thing that fascinates me the most. And just to be clear for the listeners and viewers, so you are a one-man shop.
Yeah. So I do everything myself here.
So, I mean, and that's so inspiring. It's incredible because it's like, even for me, I've done this whole podcast completely myself, and it's a whole process in of itself, but this is much more complex in its own way, right? And it's just like the fact that you've tried these different ways to become more efficient or find ways to be more cost effective and scale yourself. But yet you still it seems like you mostly come back to still doing it yourself because you just have realized you do it the best. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So it really, like, it is that age old saying of, like, if you want it done right, do it yourself. And it's just so true. Like, it really is. That's, for me, it's the only way to do it. And
particularly if it's a craft, if it's an art craft like this.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've hired different companies. I've talked with different people. It just, for me, if I wanted to scale and keep the integrity of my knives and have them still be my knives, because you can hire you can find cheaper shops. You can go to China. You can do this. You can do that. Like, you can get shit made, but it's not going to be the same product.
That's good. Yeah.
I mean, I could bring guys in here and train them how to sharpen, assemble. I've had guys come in for short periods of time and try to do stuff, and, like, you're not going to get the same thing by when they do it as if when you do it. And that is what I think makes my knife special. I get messages literally on the daily of people that say, hey, I picked up one of your blades. I own this company, this company, this company. Yeah. I thought theirs were going to be nicer than yours, and I like yours better. And I'm like, that's because I made it. I didn't train someone and have them make it. Yeah. As good, you could have the best employees in the world. There's probably still not going to be as good as yourself. I have 10 years of experience sharpening my knives day in and day out. Yeah. So, not trying to knock anyone else. I just know that that's how I do it, and it works for me. And it keeps the integrity of the product.
Next up, a solo episode by me talking about scaling your business using AI. Here, I talk about how every business has become a technology company because of the requirement to stay up to speed in order to compete with this fast-moving world of technology and AI today. Every company is a technology company. And this came from some large software companies I worked for, where they would sell a big deal to a massive customer. And it's so true, because these large companies, legacy companies, have to adopt technology in order to keep up with the competition. And now AI is a huge part of technology that is making things even faster and more impressive in every way you can think of. So you basically need tech and AI to stay relevant and compete. Now, some of the challenges that come up are, one, customization and accuracy. These AI tools already are incredibly powerful, but they're not perfect. And yes, they're getting better, but there's still a long ways to go. There's almost always some sort of nuance whenever we seem to try to use one of these AI tools to get what we need, right? There's been debate even in ChatGPT of it shooting out accurate information. ChatGPT, I've played around with it sometimes, and I'll notice it will give you one answer. When you ask a question, you can ask the same question and say, no, you're wrong, and it'll give you a different answer and say, sorry, I was wrong. So it's there's just a lot of nuances there that you need to be aware of. But obviously, I think where we are in AI in general is that it's really good to be used as a guide to help you do your work, to make things faster. It's not meant to completely do the work for you at this point. Sure, it depends what tools you're using, what you're trying to do. But in the overall case of what you're trying to produce, I think AI is really meant to be a tool to help you. And we're going to learn ways to adjust our workflows to make these tools work for us instead of completely take over us humans. Next up, Jess Burgio, co-founder of Media Unscripted and host of the Unscripted podcast. Here we talk about Jessica's mission around helping people connect their voices to their brand, how she found her voice through podcasting, and how she is helping others do the same. Connecting your voice to your brand. That's what you're helping people with, right? Through your business, Media Unscripted, and you do coaching, you do breathwork, you have your podcast, you're all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think there's a theme that brings all of this together, which is that one-liner that you have on your Instagram profile. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I really think connecting your voice to your brand means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But overall, for me, I found my voice through podcasting. It really was one of the most impactful things I think I could have ever done for myself. And long form ways of communicating and talking, all of us, I don't care who you are, once we kind of talk things out and we kind of put words to how we're feeling, we can sort of make sense of all of that. And so I got to do that in real time on my podcast. And it kind of came to me in a human design class. I was really interested in learning more about myself, how I meant to show up, how I meant to make decisions. And so I was just in a space in my life about a year ago where I was going deep on figuring out like how I was really meant to show up and serve, because social media gets really noisy. Everything looks glitzy, glammy. All the gurus, different coaches want to tell you how to do things. Yeah. And entrepreneurship is wild. It's the Wild West. Literally anything goes. Any business is applicable. If there's a problem, you can solve it and create a business out of it. Right. And for me, when I was pivoting from behind the chair as a stylist and kind of creating my path with entrepreneurship and becoming like a coach, if you will, I really didn't know clarity or direction. And so when I started the podcast, it was kind of on a whim. And again, like I said, finding my way in the podcast space has really helped me connect my voice to my brand. So I feel like by helping other people start their podcast, allowing them just to not have a real deep plan, nothing really super strategic. We can do that, but allowing for yourself to find yourself in the conversations that you're either having on your own, solo episodes, or with guests. That's really helped me connect my voice to what I now see for myself as a brand.
Next up, Eric Uresk, championship mindset coach, jiu-jitsu and MMA coach, and prior professional MMA fighter. Here, we talk about Eric's mission around helping professional men turn chaos into clarity and how he goes about doing this. You say that you help professional men create clarity out of chaos.
Yeah.
How do you do this?
So, well, firstly, I know what chaos looks like, right? So having a familiarity with chaos, I think definitely supports me. I've been in some dark places in my life, early in my life, later in my life. I know what darkness looks like. I'm not afraid to go there. And I'm not afraid to go there with somebody else, and, in their own darkness. So I've always had an innate gift as a mixed martial arts coach and just observing life in general. The ability to see how things mix together, right? So mixed martial arts, I'm pulling from all different disciplines, right? And, you have striking coaches, you have wrestling coaches, jiu-jitsu coaches. One thing I always did really well is I understood the interwoven aspects of all of those things when they come together, which is an intangible that a person may not understand if they come from one discipline. Yeah. And you could say, if we were to look at like the 4 quadrants of somebody's life, right? So their mind, their body, their relationships, and their work. Okay. I don't believe that those things are separate. In fact, I believe they're inextricably linked and that they all touch each other in one facet or another, right? And so my gift is the ability to see where certain things may be out of balance and then help and support an individual into creating that balance, towards whatever particular goals or outcomes they're looking to create for themselves.
Next up, Eric Scire, professional photographer. Here, he talks about his come up and how he started getting gigs at different music events and venues to pick up steam and start making a living doing what he loves.
So I started building my portfolio. I reached out to her. I was like, hey, do you have any available things to shoot at these festivals and or nightclub stuff in San Diego? And then she had put me in touch with their marketing person. And then I started shooting at Bang Bang for what is it, Crossfest or whatever. Right. I don't remember, My LED or something. So I was there shooting now regularly. I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm making money now. I'm making a couple $100 a weekend. I'm working every weekend. like, I'm like, okay, all right, dope. Now I'm doing this. And now I'm shooting like artists, like, you know, I'm shooting bands like Goldfish. I'm shooting Too Many DJs. I'm shooting Nora and Pure. I'm shooting, I mean, I've shot so many different artists at Bang Bang.
Yeah.
It's hard to even remember. Dr. Fresh, I shot there. Like a lot of artists I've shot there. And it's this like small kind of intimate club. So it was kind of cool. And I was working there for like a year, I want to say, maybe longer. And
no, go ahead.
No, and then I started doing the music festival. I started shooting Crossfest for them. And I was shot a couple Crossfests, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Yeah. And then I shot at EDC Las Vegas, and my friend Bennett had reached out to me. He was like the director of photography for Insomniac.
So it was really just a compounding effect for the gigs that you got.
Yeah, it's just like one led to the other. You know, it's like I said, I had to put in the work to show like I gave a shit and that like I could do this.
You created a solid ground of content over the course of a few years. And that really was mostly held online with the social media, early days, Facebook, Instagram.
Absolutely. And I did 90% of my stuff was via Instagram, and I would just reach out and I'd follow other people. They'd follow me back. I interact. And, you know, you might not think people are watching, but people are watching.
Right.
They were looking at what I was posting, you know, and they which gave me credibility in what I do. So then, you know, I'd shot EDC Las Vegas. Gosh, what year was that? 2000 and I want to say it was like 2015, maybe. That was like early on in my like career, you know, because I started about 2012. And then by 2015, I had shot EDC Las Vegas.
Wow.
So about a 3-year progression. Was I in way over my head? Absolutely. In EDC Las Vegas.
So?
Oh, man. That was like one of the toughest experiences.
I can imagine, just given the production that they have of that thing.
Yeah, it was a lot. I was not prepared for that. But I showed up and I did a good job.
Right.
And no one complained. So I'm happy.
Good. So you clearly learned a lot about how to shoot these different productions, different events, concerts on the go as you were doing it.
Absolutely.
Next up, a solo episode by me talking about the launch of my new business, Legacy Kapsule. In my journey of hosting the Nichols and Dimes show over the past year and more, I've learned about the power of story and the impact of hearing someone's story and getting into it with them in a long form conversation is tremendous. And so imagine if you can have a tailored version of that for somebody who you love, someone perhaps in your family who's getting older, but they're still with us, right? They're still able to really call back on what it was like for them growing up, or what their family was like, or what was it like becoming parents? What was their career like, right? What life event did they live through that was so interesting, right? Take our generation, for example. Our grandkids will be just astounded to learn that we lived through the year of 2020, for example, right? And we could share that story in the future and have that recorded in a way for generations to come. And not just so that they can hear the story, because stories, of course, have been passed down through generations since the beginning of time, but you get to actually feel it directly from them because it's a video recording of that person telling the story. So I think there's an incredible opportunity here, and it's a very fulfilling service to offer. Next up, Jake Kauffman, men's transformation coach. Here, he talks about how his personal life experience motivated him to get into the coaching space to help others. He touches on the importance of facing your pain head on in order to grow. Well, that's valuable stuff, and it really sets the stage well for the work you're doing today. And I want to transition into how everything you just shared, all of these insights, your life experience has influenced your career journey and then your entrepreneurial journey. And, you know, I remember in your book, you'd mentioned you were doing some jobs and you were not holding a job. Right? Yeah. And things just weren't clicking. And then you were working in restaurants, right? And then you ended up founding your company. As a coach. And could you just kind of walk us through the beginning stages of that and then the founding of your business?
Yeah, well, I mean, it got to the point where, you know, as Tony Robbins says, like, until the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, you're not actually going to change. And so for me, it was this prevailing notion that I was capable of so much more. I was 29 years old, still working and serving tables in restaurants, knowing that I wanted to impact other people, knowing that I wanted to have a positive influence in the lives of other people, but of course, deeply failing, at least in my mind, to make that happen. And so that cognitive dissonance is what really pushed me to take a look in the mirror and say, like, I need to become someone else. Not that I'm not good enough, inherently, but clearly I need to do some interpersonal work in order to become the person that I say I'm committed to being and becoming, so that I can accomplish what I want to accomplish and have an impact on the lives of other people and have a certain degree of impact. And so that's what pushed me down the road of personal development. And now I would say, that without continuous personal development, you are now all that you will ever become.
I love that. Yeah, the personal development never stops.
Correct. And the real work is in talking about the things that I don't want to talk about. It's in addressing the things that I would rather avoid, which is why the breakthroughs that everyone is looking for are found on the other side of the things that we avoid.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week. Thank you for joining our conversation today on the Nichols and Dimes Show. Please check out and follow my podcast Instagram at Nichols and Dimes Show. I'd love to have you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube. You can also find it on my website. I welcome and encourage any feedback you can share in the reviews so I can continue to improve and develop the show. Thanks again, and see you next time.